Flashback: The Quest for Identity, released in 1992, throws players into its world with little backstory. You awaken in a jungle, unaware of the broader conspiracy that eventually reveals itself. There's a pronounced element of danger, since you're less capable than the typical video game hero. Falls can be fatal, and character movement conveys a convincing feeling of weight, giving Quest for Identity a sense of physical reality that was rare at the time, comparable to the visionary work of Jordan Mechner, creator of Prince of Persia. Decades later, a full remake attempts to capitalize on these same strengths. But while Prince of Persia found success, sequels, and rebirth, it seems Flashback is destined to fade into distant memory. In this remake, every detail lifted from Quest for Identity, such as the overall story and deliberate feel of movement, is tarnished by additions that are simply pointless or actually make the game worse. VectorCell's attempt at revitalization is nothing short of a mess, missing the appeal of the original and making only minor improvements to a design that feels understandably dated. The new Flashback does add analog control, which makes moving around much easier since there's no longer a need for a separate run button. Indicators now mark which ledges you can and cannot jump to, removing much of the trial and error of before. Targeting enemies is also much easier with the ability to fire at any angle, and a laser sight clearly gauges where your shots will hit. These tweaks don't fix one of the greatest problems from Quest for Identity: awkward and frustrating combat that is so intrusive it completely destroys the fun of carefully making your way through each environment. Small droids, the most basic enemies, hurtle themselves toward you, necessitating quick aiming and keeping your distance. However, because the remake tries to emulate the feel of the original, your character is too sluggish to fight effectively. Attempting to climb up to a different vantage point almost ensures you'll get hit because of the emphasis on animation. Many spaces feel so congested that it's often hard to dodge at all. Even when you're given ample room to duke it out, battles are extremely monotonous. There are only a handful of different enemies, and they all act very aggressively. Targets take far too many shots to kill, and this is especially true of the aliens you fight toward the end of the game. Not only can they take an obscene amount of damage, they spend most of their time in an untouchable form. These enemies are present in the original and are just as annoying, but the remake was a great opportunity to make the fights less aggravating. Some of this tediousness would be fixed if your character had more versatility in combat, but you're primarily stuck with a pistol and grenades throughout the entire game. While the pistol is at the very least a reliable weapon, grenades are practically useless during battle since you have to awkwardly aim them with the right stick.
I need urgent medical assistance here!
Almost equally worthless are so-called skills, which you gain by leveling up. Each level nets you points that you can put into one of three categories: accuracy, technology, and stamina. By putting points into them, you gain benefits like increased health, reduced fall damage, and improved chances for critical hits. The problem is none of the skills offer immediate or obvious advantages. For example, when you put a point into the stamina tree, you're never told how much health you've gained. The payoff is so negligible that it's barely worth bothering with. While the narrative itself is largely inoffensive, the way it's told is clumsy at best. After awakening in a jungle, you discover that you're Conrad B. Hart, an agent for the Galaxia Bureau of Investigation. Your memory was wiped, and you now have to figure out why. Instead of slowly uncovering a well-layered mystery, you'll know how the story will end halfway through.
I seem like a really sharp guy.
You're lots of things, but you're no fool.
Just as predictable is Conrad's updated look, which makes him look like a cheap Nathan Drake ripoff without a shred of personality. Even worse than his generic look are the words that spew from his mouth. Lines like "awesome sauce,"
Awesome sauce.
or "the only thing I'll ever be late for is my funeral," are dumb and awkward. It's obvious that these lines are meant to be cheesy since there's an element of camp in the original, but there's zero craft or consistency with the humor. None of it works. Clumsy narrative flashbacks are barely animated and mostly comprised of black and white comic images. These sequences feel cheap and don't begin to grab your attention, much less pull you into the story.
Ah, damn. Okay, that hurts.
Flashback is a disappointing game with little to offer. The original had its eyes toward the future, very deliberately trying to do things differently. Great remakes are able to adapt, modifying and expanding upon the previous game's ideas. Here, there's hardly more than recycled concepts and a total failure to capitalize on the first game's potential. Improvements are few, and many of the updates make things worse instead of better. There's no need for another Flashback. The best thing to do is wipe your memory of this remake.